I want to trade in 14th chance at this life.
I do believe in free trade, but only if you have smart leaders. And with China, it's not free trade. We don't have free trade with China. I love free trade, but it's got to be free trade and it's got to be fair trade. It's got to be where everything's equal.
I could have been so mistaken.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. That's Donald Trump speaking about the trade imbalance that exists and the aftermath of all of these wonderful free trade agreements that were supposed to help bring American wages up and new jobs, manufacturing humming in the United States. You might think we have a GDP around 4% after all these trade deals we've had. But, of course, that didn't happen, didn't work out that way. China is poised to eclipse us as an economic power. China boasts a $314 to $17 billion trade deficit with the United States, and trade deficits building with Korea after the Korea free trade deal, and the list goes on and on. But nevertheless, I've not seen Republicans on Capitol Hill work harder, more diligently, with greater dedication on an issue than giving Obama fast-track trade authority, which is basically a pre-clearance vote for trade deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all these other acronyms like the European Free Trade Deal, TISA and TAA. And if you're someone who questions the wisdom of giving this president this authority with this level of secrecy surrounding these deals, you're called an anti-free trader. You're called just a negative force in politics, sticking your head in the sand. And I just say we're for American independence, American sovereignty, making our own decisions. Bilateral trade agreements, or certainly trade agreements that Congress has the ability to amend and change as necessary with trading partners that we're doing great work with now. Joining us now to give us the latest right before the next bite at the apple after the last attempt failed, burned up like a red dwarf, is Kurt Clawson, U.S. Representative for Florida's 19th Congressional District, and he was just voted in 2014. And in 2014, we voted in all these people to resist Obama. All these Republicans got into office because they promised to resist Obama. Now, Ryan is Obama's best friend. Congressman Clawson, great to talk to you, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell me where we are, because, I'm sticking to this story. I've never seen the Republicans so excited about a piece of legislation in a long, long time. I mean, they are just all hopped up on giving Obama this authority because they desperately want big business to get these big trade deals. What's at stake here?
Well, it feels like we're doing favors for friends again when we ought to be thinking about the overall good of the country. And look, I always say, and having spent 26 years in industry and running a multinational company, I say that if American companies, the American worker, if we are given a fair deal and a fair shot, that we can win, compete with anybody, grow jobs, grow the top line, grow the economy, do all the things that we ought to be doing. But these kind of deals where we are bad negotiators to begin with, and then we give away the farm on currency manipulation that leads to massive economic destruction and the hollowing out of the middle class in the middle of our country. I mean, why would we want to do this? And I think you mentioned something interesting in your intro. I mean, the fact that folks like me who have been around the block on this a little bit are saying, hey, if we do these deals, let's call out the other side for their protectionist ways. Us saying that makes us the protectionist. And so, look, in my case and my friends, we're willing to stand up on this. We're doing everything we can to resist it. We think this is a bad deal for our economy, and we don't think it's fair for millions of Americans to lose their jobs because the people that we trade with cheat. And that just ain't right to me. And no one's going to change my mind until the American worker and the American companies get a fair shot here.
What is Paul Ryan not understanding here about why this fast track is such a disaster for American sovereignty and American workers, even American business? What is he not understanding?
Listen, I think that the other side might, they have some legitimate points that there are some positives to these kind of trade deals. Everybody gets a lower price at Walmart. They get a lower price at Hyundai. And even though those aren't a market price, mind you, I think everybody sees those benefits. But I think and I think he does too, but I think they miss 2 points. Number one, the destruction of those millions of peoples and those families, the personal devastation here is overlooked. It's just Washington being in an ivory tower yet again. And I just won't do that to the people I grew up with and the people I worked with all those years. And I think the second thing that they underestimate is the fairness argument. Even if there are some advantages to our economy by doing these sorts of deals, the skewed playing field costs people their jobs from world-class companies. Now, I'm not talking about uncompetitive companies from the 70s and the 80s that everybody likes to point at as the example. What we're saying and what I'm saying is these are world-class plants closing down because the other folks cheat, and that ain't right for America. And that's a great fairness argument for us as a party to make to the American people in the run-up to the next election, and we're turning away from that in order to help big importers make more money. And I just won't do it.
To read the Wall Street Journal, you would think that us who have concerns about how these trade deals have played out are just, we're just know-nothings, and we're xenophobic. We want to wall the country off from competition, that we're just not operating in the real world. They're the globalists, and we're the isolationists when it comes to trade.
Right. Memo to the Wall Street Journal. According to the Economic Policy Institute, currency manipulation costs us $500 billion a year. That's 2.7% of GDP, and 5 million new jobs would be created if we stopped it. That's the data, and, that doesn't make you and me an incompoop, a know-nothing, or a xenophobic. None of the above. It makes us realistic about what the equation is, in my mind. Sorry for interrupting you.
Now, Congressman Kurt Clawson is with us from Florida, just elected in 2014, and I think it's so critical for people to understand that he is not this kind of person who's just a lifetime politician. And we got a lot of them up on Capitol Hill. That's all they've ever done. I mean, God bless Paul Ryan, but Paul Ryan was working with Jack Kemp in the 80s, right, the 90s. I mean, the whole life in Washington. And Kurt ran Hayes Lemmers, which is this Michigan-based automobile wheel and brakes. Is a supplier of this. It's important component parts, right, to automobiles. So you've seen firsthand what happens to American manufacturing products when these trade deals are rammed through without the real consideration of how they're going to ultimately play out in countries that cheat, countries that have a whole different, approach to protecting their own corporations than we have. And so you see it firsthand, not from a philosophical standpoint. The Wall Street Journal stands on philosophy. I'm a purist on free trade. I heard I won't say who it is, but a presidential candidate said this to me privately. I'm a purist. I just disagree with you on this. And I said, okay. Well, I guess it doesn't matter what happens to American manufacturing.
I'd like some of those purists to come on out to the Midwest and tell folks that they're losing their jobs, and they will trade down the job totem pole to much less paying jobs for their family. You know what? As I travel around, I often bump into people that I used to work with in the industry who used to work at world-class facilities, mind you, not uncompetitive plants. And they'll say, Mr. Clawson, any chance the plant's going to open back up? I'm having a hard time making ends meet. I need to pay for my kids' college. And so I like the purists to say to me, how is it right that folks working at world-class plants lose their jobs because the other side cheats? and then they're working somewhere else much less satisfying and much less lucrative for them and their families. This would have been a great issue for the Republican Party to take on, because we have a free trade issue here, and we also have a fairness issue, and it would have worked great with independents, and the base would have backed us up too. We very rarely get an issue around here that the base will support us on, and we can pick up independent voters as well. Yeah,
I think we can pick up Democrats.
And what do? We walk away, and then we're going to say, what happened to Ohio and Michigan and Illinois in the next election? I am dumbfounded by this approach, and moreover, I'm always heartsick for all those great folks that worked at great facilities that now look for other jobs, and why do we leave them out of the equation?
I know. My father used to work at Pratt & Whitney Aircraft in East Hartford, Connecticut. Worked there for more than 30 years. Pratt & Whitney has contracted, and look, it's part of the defense contracting world of United Technologies, and I've seen what's happened to community with just the fewer jobs in that one sector. Right, and there's a whole bunch of reasons beyond trade.
Right. Well, what happens is when the shifts go down or the plant closes, then the bakery closes, the barbershop next door closes, the grocery store closes, and all of those jobs, which economists would call, depending on the money multiplier, they go with it. If we lose those jobs because some other country has a comparable advantage or are more competitive, then I swallow hard and accept it. But what's occurring now is that American manufacturing has made this great comeback, and yet we still lose because the Asians intervene in the currency market. And that's not fair. And then the purists say, well, y'all are protectionists for pointing that out. I say that humbug to that. I say that we ought to stand up for our manufacturing, and we can't be a great country without a manufacturing sector.
I completely agree. And Congressman, we're almost out of time, so I want to remind everybody that on June 10th, Congressman Clawson and Kildee tried to amend the TPA on currency manipulation. That obviously was not successful. What does Boehner and Ryan say to you when you bring this up? I mean, what do they personally say to you? Anything?
For them, for our leadership in general, and I'm not going to talk to anybody personally, it's all about inside baseball, which is, I am given the reasons that we can't take this currency to a manipulation amendment to a vote is because it might not get by the Senate, might not get by the president.
Because Obama, no. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. And now you know what? Well, Obama said, Obama said to Boehner and Obama said to McConnell, I don't want anything mucking up this TPA. I don't want any amendments. I want a clean TPA because we need this TPP passed. The whole world's looking at us. We got to get this TPP passed. I don't want anything mucking it up. Get it done. And they're like, okay, boss, whatever you want. This is what Paul Ryan said when asked about the transparency question.
When an agreement is reached, when America gets an agreement with other countries, before the president can even sign off on it, we make it public for 60 days. And then the president can sign it. But when he signs it, it doesn't go into effect. When he signs it, it just means he sends it to Congress.
So your reaction to that? I know why that's just ridiculous, but go ahead.
Look, I think the following, that let's get an administration that has negotiated something in their life before they became president and has a little bit of experience in this way, and even if we don't get any deals for a year and a half,
who cares?
I think that, the sky's not falling here. The world's not going to end. Walmart's going to keep filling up with Chinese goods in the meantime. And so I say if we have to wait until we get more professional negotiators doing these deals that will draw a harder bargain, I say that's okay.
Yeah, well, why the rush? What's the rush?
There is no rush. I mean,
we're trading with all these nations now, except for I think 2. So we're already doing the trading with these nations. There's a lot in this for big business, and the big business, they want the global rules enforced. They want a global understanding. This is more about global governance and trade in the end. Congressman, we really appreciate it. I mean, someone like you could be president. Someone like you, with your clarity of presentation, bringing forth issues that could bring Democrats, Republicans and independents together and push back the donor class for a moment and say, not so fast. We're doing this for the American worker. I think it could change politics. And I know Trump's trying to do that, but you could change politics.
The donor class is killing us. You're hitting it right on the head, but I don't think I have enough friends in the powerful places where I'm legitimate for the presidency. But I do appreciate you bringing it up, but I appreciate what you're doing for the country.
I appreciate the people are with you, so we have to stand up to the other people. I appreciate